Hey, Patriot Pastor subscribers and fans, if you will. It's good to see you. This is episode 5 of the Patriot Pastor, and I'm glad that you're watching this. If this is your first time, just check it out. Stay with me. See what you think. I usually keep it around 20-25 minutes tops. If you feel like this is something worth sharing, please share it. And once I get to 1,000 subscribers, I can do live from YouTube, live videos. So I need you to help me to get to 1,000. I just started this a couple weeks ago, so I'm looking to spread the word. We're engaging culture through the lens of Scripture. I'm not just trying to be another talking head. I'm trying to be a pastor who comments on current events, things that are being voted upon, politicians, and the like, through the lens of Scripture. And so if you're a Christian, you're going to find common ground here. If you're not a Christian, you know, it's understandably that you won't agree with me. But if you have roots in the Judeo-Christian biblical worldview, then I would encourage you to rethink some things, because we are in a culture war right now, and we've had a devastating loss with Donald Trump not winning the 2020 election. And I want to talk about that for just a moment. I want to talk about 4 reasons why we lost that election as conservatives and some possible solutions. I did this talk at the Republican Club of St. Petersburg last Wednesday night, and I really wish that I would have recorded it, because there was a lot of energy there. And when I speak to a live crowd, it's a lot better. So I'm in my home study, and so there's not anybody. I'm not looking at anybody but a screen. So it doesn't have the same passion, the same energy, but you'll get the essence of it. And I'm going to try to do a better job bringing a videographer with me when I speak. I had the Young Republicans reach out to me. Community Patriots reached out to me. I'm going to be speaking at those venues and those clubs, so I'm excited about it. I'm just a guy who's just saying, hey, I want to make a difference. I'm just a guy who says, I'm not going to sit around and just watch this happen. I'm not passive. I'm not apathetic. I understand that when you step into the light and you begin to proclaim what you believe is right, you're going to be attacked. I'm not worried about the attacks. I'm not worried about cancel culture. I can just tell you that being a pastor's son and now being a pastor my entire adult career, if you will, I've lived in a glass house my entire life. So I know what it is like to be in front of people. I know what it's like to be attacked. I know what it is like to be scrutinized. And my motives are pure. I just want to help America to rebuild and redig its Judeo-Christian foundations. And I'm excited about a couple projects I'm working on right now about that. But I can tell you about that later. Let me just jump right into, I know a lot of you guys are devastated. Some maybe even be discouraged. But I hope that you can be inspired and energized to do something about it. What I'm observing is that people on our side are very energized. They're involved. For example, last Wednesday night, there was about 200 people that showed up to the Community Patriots group. There's about 175 in my estimation in the group that I spoke to on the same night in the same general locale. There's other groups that are seeing amazing involvement. And so I want to encourage you. Conservative patriots are marching, we are organizing, we are fighting, and we must fight. We must not fight people. We must fight ideologies and values that we believe that are bad for our country, bad for our communities, bad for our families. So I'm proud of you that you're watching. Again, share this video. Go to my YouTube channel. I don't know, a lot of you are watching this on Facebook right now, because I'm doing this on Facebook Live first. But go to my YouTube channel, The Patriot Pastor. Just look for the logo that you see here on my Facebook Live, and share that, subscribe to it, click on the notifications so that whenever I post some new material, you'll see it. Let me talk about 4 things. We lost this election, I believe, number 1, because the manipulation of the COVID data to emphasize people who die with COVID instead of people dying from COVID. The emphasis was placed on people who died with COVID instead of people dying from COVID. You know, that number is a whole lot different than the hundreds of thousands that they're saying. You know, there's about 50,000 people die from the flu every year. You know, and it's amazing that the flu numbers are really not talked about. Why? They're being absorbed into the COVID numbers. The COVID data was being manipulated as a ramming horn or as a club to beat Donald Trump with. He's being irresponsible, they say. He's killing our loved ones. No, you are manipulating the data. We know for a fact that a motorcyclist was tragically killed in a motorcycle accident, and because he had COVID, they marked him as a COVID death. Really? Come on, man. And there's many, many more examples like that. So the manipulation of the COVID data was just hammered over and over and over. And we're appealing to people's heartstrings. The liberal media, social media, liberals were hammering Donald Trump. You know, he's not doing enough. How could you vote for a guy like that that's guilty of all these deaths? Hogwash. Most of the people that died had comorbidities. They were vulnerable, and very few people that were healthy died from COVID. And so this was a pandemic that nobody really knew how to deal with. And I think Donald Trump struck a good balance. We live in Florida, and what's great about it, our governor was flowed along with the same approach, which was not to cripple our economy while dealing with this pandemic. And now that science is is confirming the fact that it's basically hitting people who had already had health problems, then we've overreacted in a lot of cases. Unlike Governor Cuomo, who intentionally caused people in assisted living facilities to be exposed. That was ridiculous. Now, there's the crime right there, is what was done there. So the manipulation of the COVID data was one of the main reasons why we lost the election, why they beat Donald Trump up. The second reason is Trump was being labeled a racist, even though he hasn't done or said anything to justify that accusation. Donald Trump was hammered, oh, he's a racist. How can you vote for a racist? What has he ever done or said that's been a racist? Donald Trump, here's what Donald Trump did was help minorities have the highest level of employment in history, especially the black community. This when you really want to talk about what's been done with minorities, you need to really look at the numbers there. The highest employment rate in the black community in history was under Donald Trump. Now listen, what Barack Obama was touted for, was praised for, was giving out more meal cards and more EBT cards or food. He was like the food stamp king. Let me tell you something, that is not a good label to wear. It'd be much better to have the label of the employment king. See, the Democrats want to create dependency. They want to create enslavement. They're enslavement 2.0. And I want to keep saying this kind of stuff over and over and over because here's the truth. Lyndon B. Johnson, before he rolled out the welfare state, he said, basically, I know I'm going to have the black community voting for Democrats for the next 200 years. Why? Because I'm creating dependency. They're going to be dependent on us. We're the one that's going to give them stuff. You know what? All they did was create dependency. It's not good. And then now that's created a victim's mentality. And now it escalated into, this Black Lives Matter movement that became violent. And for 5 months, we saw the attack of innocent people, their businesses, their homes, police officers, defunding the police. That's the most ridiculous idea. The people who need the police the most are in the places where the Democrats' policies have had the most damage, which is the inner city, where they have divided the black family, and there's young mothers and grandmothers trying to raise all those boys, and they're not used to authority. They're not have a strong male figure telling them, no, you can't do that. And the first interaction they have with authority is the police, and that's too big of a burden. And so Donald Trump was on the path to improving this country for minorities better than any president in many, many years. And so calling him a racist was the most ridiculous thing, the most ridiculous claim. And because the media just keeps saying it over and over and over, and social media was saying it over and over and over, that's people just hear it, especially young people. If you go to Snapchat, by the way, you can, it's amazing before the election how much these pockets of social media were encouraging the left side, the liberal side. It's crazy, man. And so there's, especially young people, they weren't digging deeper. A lot of them were not digging deeper into what really was going on, was really the facts of the matter. They were just caught up into the culture, and the culture was saying, hey, orange man bad, orange man bad. Well, when you look at the numbers, he was actually great to minority communities. And so it was the second reason why I believe Donald Trump lost the election was that he was labeled as racist, even though there was no foundation for that accusation. The third reason why I believe Donald Trump lost the election was that election standards were lowered to accommodate people because of COVID. I'm not even going to talk about the possibility of the voting machines. I never went down that path. That may or may not have happened. I'm a guy who just sticks with the facts. Here's what I know. They lowered standards for voter ID and signature requirements. That is an undisputed fact. Before COVID, the previous election, there was a rejection rate that was much, much higher. I believe it was, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was a lot higher. I heard one state was like 6% the rejection rate of ballots. And then during COVID, it was a 0.6% rejection rate. They lowered the signature requirements. So, and they lowered the voter ID because we don't want to disenfranchise anybody who can't make it to the polls. I get that. And that sounds nice. The problem is it was all part of a manipulative strategy of the left, of the Democrats, to basically try to suppress or to try to get an opportunity to have more Democratic votes. And that way they can slide in more votes, fake ballots and things like that. This is absolutely a fact on this. In fact, it's so important that right now Nancy Pelosi has rolled out H.R. 1, House of Representatives Bill number 1. It's in Congress right now. I haven't got the update on that. You're that are watching this after the fact, you'll know what's happened with that. But basically what they're trying to do is establish those temporary voting standards during COVID to be ongoing. And they want to federalize the standards. What does that mean? We can control it. We want to take away the control from the states. I'm telling you, if they pull that off, folks, that's very concerning. This doesn't have to involve conspiracy theories. Doesn't have to have anything to do with Dominion voting. Any of those other commentaries, it very well could be. Not even talking about that. I'm talking about what's above the surface. The voting standards for ballots were lowered because of COVID. Democrats manipulated that. They used it to their advantage. And I believe there was a lot of false ballots that were put in there. So it's not good. Those election standards were lowered. That's number 3. Number 4, fourth reason why Donald Trump lost this election. Social media platforms were acting as publishers and censoring content on their platforms in favor of Joe Biden and a liberal perspective. That is absolutely true. And that has to be changed. The 1996 Communications Decency Act, Section 230, okay, basically says that it protects a social media platform to not be held liable or responsible for somebody who is on their platform saying something that's not good. And so that sounds reasonable. It's not a bad idea. The problem is that these social media platforms are now using that protection against conservatives. And they're becoming publishers. Meaning they're controlling content. They're acting like publishers. So this is not good. This has to be changed. This is a very critical aspect of losing elections and winning elections for the conservative side. This is something that we have to focus on. So we need to engage on these issues. Now, I took a little bit more time in the live presentation. I'm giving you a little bit condensed version. But those 4 reasons, I believe, are the four biggest reasons from my perspective of why Donald Trump lost the election. Now, the good thing is, in the House of Representatives, we gained ground. The liberals lost seats. They hammered Donald Trump effectively. But on the local races, we gained ground. Now, we lost a little bit of ground in the Senate. And, I'm not going to go down the path of and make statements about what exactly was done there. I think there's a lot of us that really suspect voter fraud. I've seen a little bit of the Pillow Guys presentation. You can't turn a blind eye to some of that stuff. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be responsible for what I believe is real obvious and talk about that. And these 4 things are very, very obvious. And so let's talk about the possible solutions, okay? We need to engage on these 4 issues and make sure the playing field is level going into the 2022 election. This is very, very important. Specifically, we need to, number one, as it relates to the manipulation of the COVID data, we need to expose the hypocrisy of how COVID numbers were manipulated. Medical doctors and personnel on hospitals were incentivized to label someone as having COVID. Hey, for every person that you have, is labeled as a COVID death or someone who has COVID, we're going to give you more money. We're going to give you more equipment. We're going to help you. So, of course, they're going to, label as anybody, label anybody they can think of, or that can pass that muster as having COVID. Let me just tell you, I can't share my source on this, but I know somebody who works at Johns Hopkins Hospital, okay? And through direct inter-office communications, even most recently, the protocol was changed that somebody who was now through COVID, they no longer have COVID, but they're still in the hospital, was still labeled as having COVID. What's the motivation for that? What's the motivation for that? Pre-election stuff. So there's hypocrisy there. If there was this global reset desire, the World Economic Forum has been talking about this. It's on their website. If you watch Glenn Beck, I listen to him occasionally and on talk radio. And if you go to the World Economic Reform, there's a desire for this big reset. Okay, this big economic reset. Well, if that's the case and there are strong forces pushing for that, you have to be a little suspicious. I'm definitely not one to go down conspiracy theories. I just think it's dangerous. I think we have to be careful, but we have to listen and consider the possibility of these things because they do happen. They have happened historically, and we must be aware and we must be careful. Like, Frank, you're exactly right. Follow the money. Follow the money is a big indicator of what's going on there. So that's number one. That's the response to problem number one. We need to expose the hypocrisy of how COVID numbers were manipulated. Secondly, and by the way, number one, we can't do a whole lot about that. This is going to be coming to an end here in the next couple months, but they used it effectively. Democrats, liberals, the left use it effectively to beat Donald Trump up with that. Number two, I said Trump was labeled as a racist. And what's the solution to that? Well, don't let the media or agitators divide us, meaning whites and blacks. Anybody, that's especially the focus, but whether it's Latinos or Asians or any kind of division that's trying to be stirred up. I don't know why Asians are being attacked this last couple weeks, being beaten up, just be viciously attacked. It's unbelievable. But see, that's what, if you're a Christian, that's where Satan wants to divide us. That's where the forces of darkness, evil, wants to divide us. Let's not take the bait on that. Let's build bridges to minority communities with the conservative truths and values that will bring them long-term freedom, liberty, and justice. Let's love people. Let's speak the truth in love. Let's make sure that we don't let anybody darken our heart with any stereotypical, prejudicial ideas or thoughts. Let's not take that bait. Let's not anybody suck us into that. Let's be pure-hearted. I'm going to tell you personally, I'm working on a document of unity with a couple other leaders in this community that I'm going to be engaging black pastors on to unite on a biblical perspective on current events and values that we vote on. I'm going to be reaching out to especially black pastor friends of mine and people that I don't even know and pastor groups and say, look, here's what we just voted on. And a lot of these values are all talked about in the scriptures. Let's make sure that when we go to the voting booth that we are Christians above being white, that we are Christians above we are black, that we are Christians above being Latino, or we are Christians above being Asian. Let's make sure that our identity is in Christ. And I'm going to challenge them to read this document of unity and say, listen, if we stand together on this, on biblical values, God will bless us and God will provide and God will help our community to be healthy and strong. And I'm going to deal with the specific things that are really hurt all communities. You know what? Fatherlessness is probably the number one issue in the black community, but politicians aren't talking about it. In fact, I brought that up in a forum I was a part of in the Tampa Bay area months ago, and I was attacked brutally by that. I'm going to tell you something right now. I don't care. Larry Elder so well so effectively communicates the statistics of any child who's raised without a father and the impact it has on them. And they are 20 times more likely to be in prison. Just one statistic stands out in my mind. 20 times more likely to go to jail when you're raised without a father. Come on, man. We're talking about police brutality. We're talking about defunding the police. We are talking about symptoms of the problem. The problem is fatherlessness. I don't care if you're white or you're black or you're Asian or Latino. You need both parents. Now, I have great applause for single moms and single dads who raised your kids. You are special. We honor you. We bless you. We respect you. But God's plan is for both parents to raise their kids. And so we need to make sure that we work for that. And so I'm working to make sure that that Donald Trump and the Republicans and conservatives are not being labeled as racist. We need to say what is right. We need to say what's truth, and we need to speak the truth in love. And so I'm doing my part by doing these kind of talks and using my influence to engage people about the solutions. And I'm also working with other pastors, and I know we're going to make some converts. I know that we'll shake some others' foundations and make them think, and I know that we'll make some enemies. But you know what? Our enemies will know that we are marching and we are taking ground and we are not sitting back, and the truth will set people free. I don't want to be mean-spirited. I want to just speak the truth in love. It's going to be passionate. I'm going to be going for it. And we're going to challenge other people to join us. We're going to have people to come out from among them who have had the continual line of the liberal, basically slavery 2.0. We're going to affect them. They're going to be coming out. There's no question in my mind. We're going to have some people in that middle ground. We're going to move them. And then we know we're going to have some absolute people that are just going to attack us. I'm prepared for that. I'm ready for that. And I also want to remind people what's great about America, and don't be intimidated or allow others to try to cancel you. I will stand tall. In fact, I think the second episode, I basically said, hey, don't be intimidated that you voted for Donald Trump. Be proud of it. He was a great president. On this President's Day, I think he'll go down as one of the greatest presidents of all time. He knew how to fight. He stood for Judeo-Christian values, and he was not afraid. He called out the media for their hypocrisy. You know what? I think Donald Trump is a great president. I don't take that back. I meant that. I meant that then. I meant that now. Praise God. So I want to encourage you to download a copy of the 1776 Project and reject the 1619 Project and tell people why. This is all under the idea of responding that conservatives, especially Donald Trump, was being labeled as racist. These are some of the things that we can do. I downloaded the 1776 Project. There is some great factual information about our history. Also want to encourage you to learn more about great black conservatives who had an impact. The liberal left doesn't want to talk about these great black men, these great black women. They were brilliant. Why is Thomas Sowell not celebrated? Why is Walt Williams not celebrated? Why is Larry Elder not celebrated? Why? Because they're conservative blacks. It doesn't fit the narrative. You know? I'm telling you right now, we got some outstanding, brilliant black leaders in history, and that our contemporaries are alive today, and they're being suppressed. Their message is being suppressed because it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't get the votes. If we can help black people to feel like a victim and get them to hate the white person and to stir up strife and contention, we'll get more votes. We can now control the purse of America. We can make a lot of money as politicians. We can become, millionaires and even billionaires on the backs of vulnerable people. And that's wrong. That is wrong. The third solution, it goes to our third problem, is election standards were lowered to accommodate people because of COVID. Listen, we didn't have much to worry about this in Florida, thank God. You know why? Because in 2000, we were the laughingstock of the whole country. In 2000, the hanging chads down in South Florida was, oh my goodness, was embarrassing, so embarrassing. But, throughout the country, though, they don't have the tight election standards like we've developed here in Florida. But we must organize and we must influence our Congress and people and senators to reject the national election strategies that were in vogue to help people to not be disenfranchised because of COVID. That was good, but the lowering of the standards were bad. And that created a gap for manipulation. manipulation. I'm not going to go into the detail. If you follow other guys that go into the detail of it is a statistical impossibility to have some of the dumps that happened. In other words, you had dumps for Joe Biden that in the dump of votes or this dump of ballots that they were disproportionate to Joe Biden, and all the other dumps had a mixture of Biden and Trump. It points to manipulation. The standards were lowered, and we cannot allow that. We've got to make sure that HR 1 does not happen. You've got to contact your local congressman. I don't care if they're a Democrat. You need to put the heat on them. And you need to say, listen, we are against HR 1 for the following reasons. Do your own research on that. But we've got to make sure that we do not allow these election standards that were manipulated because of COVID to stand ongoing. All right. And the fourth solution I want to talk about, then I'm going to be done tonight, is social media platforms were acting as publishers. Okay. That was a problem. What are we going to do about that? We have got to make sure that Section 230 is stopped. We got to make sure that it is revised. We have to put pressure on our representatives. We are a constitutional republic. We are not a democracy. Listen, you'll hear, I don't care, they can say it all over listen, a pure democracy, we won't have an electoral college. It is mob rules. It is California. It is Los Angeles. It is New York City controlling the country. The founding fathers and the Federalist Papers and many other writings and documents and speeches they made were against a pure democracy. It would be the downfall of the United States of America if we were a pure democracy. We need to change our vocabulary. Do not use the word democracy. We are a constitutional republic, okay? Which means we have a constitution that is the law of the land. And then we elect representatives, 2 per state, and then 1 per region. And then you have more people in the people's house. You have 2 per state. And those people represent our interests regionally and locally, okay? So that they're responsive to the desires of each locale, okay? That is a constitutional republic. A pure democracy would be a mob. Do some research on the founders and how they were against democracy, a pure democracy, okay? We need to control the verbiage, all right? So we need to make sure that these social media platforms were not enjoying the freedoms and protections of being a platform while acting like a publisher. You have to put pressure on your representative to make sure that Section 230 of the 1996 Communications Decency Act is changed. It's got to change. And I would encourage you, if Donald Trump or somebody else comes out with a big platform, let's shift off. I'm only using Facebook right now because it is the largest platform. I'm on YouTube with this channel. Most of you are going to see this on Facebook Live, and maybe even more of you will see YouTube later on. But I am shadowing on Rumble. I want to encourage you to subscribe to the Patriot Pastor on Rumble. Why? Because I'm anticipating being censored on YouTube and Facebook. We're going to shadow on Rumble. Let's gradually shift away from Facebook, from Twitter, from YouTube. Why? These platforms are acting like publishers. We need to get off of these platforms. Now, we need to make that transition. It's going to be a while. I hope Donald Trump starts another platform. I hope that Parler comes back. We have got to fight. We've got to fight this demagoguery, if you will. They're acting like totalitarianism. They're just censoring. When you begin to take free speech, that's the beginning of a bad time in America. We need to fight for our enemies to speak freely. Are you hearing me? That's a true constitutional republic. It is a true modified democracy, if you will. So this is really important. This fourth solution, we have to make sure that social media platforms do not have the protection of being a platform when they're acting like a publisher. And those are 4 of the problems and the reasons why we lost the election, and 4 solutions on how we can win moving forward. Now, let me just close with a little flurry here. We didn't lose the election because Republican ideas weren't working. They were. Let me remind you why that we voted for Donald Trump. Let me remind you why we are conservatives. Let me remind you why Donald Trump probably won this election, but it was stolen, I believe, through the reasons I told you, through manipulation of the ballots and the lower of the voter ID and lower of the signature standards, okay? 11 reasons why Christians and conservatives voted for Trump. Number one, he was the most pro-life president since Roe v. Wade. Come on, somebody. You need to be pro-life if you're a Christian. You know, we need to show a video of a partial birth abortion all over the social media platforms and say, this is what Barack Obama voted for. This is what Kamala Harris fought for. She arrested the guy who did the undercover videos, raided his house, and took all of his computers and videos and suppressed his information. She suppressed his freedom of speech. Why? Why? She's half black. She's Jamaican descent. Her father's ashamed of her. Why? Because people need to be held accountable for this stuff. We voted for Donald Trump because he was the most pro-life president since Roe v. Wade. He cut Planned Parenthood funding. He rescinded the Mexico City policy, international funding of abortion. He was outspoken about the beginning that life began at conception. That's why we voted for him. The second reason why we voted for him, he was the most supportive of Israel. There were just recently, before he left office, he had signed a peace deal between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. He recognized the Golan Heights. He kept the Palestinian Authority in check. He rescinded the Iran deal. And we have had the most peaceful dealings with the Arab world and Israel in decades, which was thought impossible. Why? Why? Because those people knew that that president said what he meant. And he didn't do what Barack Obama did and send the state-sponsored terrorist country, Iran, $50 billion. Another reason why we voted for Donald Trump, we shouldn't be ashamed of it, is judges. He appointed over 200 federal judges, which is the most since George Washington. Many are God-fearing, life-supporting, religious liberty defending judges, and Joe Biden is trying to undo that right now. He appointed Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett that will fight for life. A third reason why we voted for Donald Trump and why we will continue to vote conservative, we need to understand who we are. And we need to be proud for who we are. Don't be ashamed of that. He signed a historic prison reform bill called the First Step Act, the biblical value of redemption. The biblical value of redemption is, listen, everybody has a second chance. Now, you want to be concerned about the black community and talk about incarceration? The Clinton, the policies of the Clinton and Democrats was incarcerating more. Biden was for that. Here is Donald Trump trying to give people a second chance. 1,800 prisoners who have demonstrated good behavior and earned the respect of guards have been released back into society. It was a great opportunity. The First Step Act, that's why we voted for Donald Trump. He gave minorities and people in prison a second chance because of good behavior. He signed the VA, the Veterans Administration Accountability Act, which gave better health care to veterans. It was talked about for 40 years, and it was done under President Donald Trump. He gave the ability to fire employees who are not getting the job done to improve care. I'm going to tell you something. This president, Donald Trump, got it done. That's why we voted for him, and we will continue to march for these values, whether he's in office or not. Trump may be done, he may not be done. I don't know, but these are values that we as conservative Christians stand for. He signed the Right to Try Act, which terminally ill patients were given the right to try drugs that have not been released to the general public, and many lives have been saved. He negotiated to have the liability clause removed so people who wanted to try experimental drugs could, and many lives were saved. Why don't they get a chance to do what they want with their bodies? They want to try a drug. That's basically what's happening right now with this vaccine. And everybody's being encouraged to take the vaccine. Man, that's an experimental drug. Donald Trump gave people an opportunity, terminally ill patients who didn't have any hope. He gave them an opportunity to try experimental drugs, and many lives were saved. He signed the Tax Reform Act. It's the biggest tax cut to the middle class in American history. It included paid leave, family leave for 8 weeks to make it easier for people to have children. That's another reason why we voted for Donald Trump. One of the other reasons why we are conservatives. He reasserted American sovereignty. No longer subservient to NATO, to the United Nations, to the World Trade Organization. This is a problem. Joe Biden is taking us back to that ridiculousness where America is not first. Folks, you need to understand that these were great ideas. These were great Republican ideas. These are great American values. These are great Christian values. You know, we asserted American sovereignty, America first, where we led by the first principles of our Constitution. Another reason why we voted for Donald Trump, he built the greatest economy in world history. 6 million black people got off of food stamps and onto meaningful employment. Come on, man. How can somebody call him racist? He's helping black people more than the previous President Barack Obama, and certainly more than this guy who came into office, who's creating slavery 2.0. Oh, I'm here to help you. No, you're not. You're here to create dependency. Donald Trump created dignity, give somebody a job, self-sufficiency, pride, a work ethic. I could take care of my family. I could raise my kids. That's the better way. Donald Trump surrounded himself with people of faith. He was unapologetic about speaking at churches. He selected an outspoken man of faith, Mike Pence, as his VP. I know some people were beating up Vice President Mike Pence. He should have done more at the validating of the Electoral College. I'm not going to get into that. Here's the deal, is that Mike Pence was a man of integrity. He is a man of integrity. He's a man of character. He's a great Christian man. And Donald Trump brought him close to him. Now listen, whether Donald Trump was playing a game to get the evangelical vote or not, you know what? I don't know. I want to believe he's sincere, but his actions were lined up with somebody who really believes. Only God knows that, you know? Paula White basically says he had a sincere conversion experience. Whether he did or not, his actions spoke louder than his words, and his actions were lined up with a biblical worldview. If you are a true Christian, you should be excited about that. He had people pray over him every day. And finally, the 11th reason why we voted for Donald Trump and we should stand by these values continually, and why I'm doing what I'm doing, do not back up on these things. We must stand strong. He did more to end child sex trafficking in our country. He just reallocated $100 million to end child sex trafficking on our southern border before he left office. Man, I'm trying to be respectful of this guy that's in office right now, who's absolutely ignorant about what's going on at that southern border. I'm telling you, we've got a mess on the southern border already, and we're only a couple weeks into this guy's presidency. Donald Trump understood the dangers. He understood the problems at the southern border. He understood that we need to control the flow of what's going on there. We also not need to let people butt in line. And if you're so concerned about COVID, you liberal Democrats, why are you letting people come across the border with all kinds of COVID issues? Come on, man. This is all about manipulation. These are people lying, deceiving people who are just playing games for your vote and my vote, but I'm not buying it. Hey, I'm glad you tuned in. I'm done with this rant. Hope you enjoyed it. Share it like crazy. This will be up on YouTube shortly. God bless you and God bless America.